Right, well, I'm here today to talk to you all about how to lose weight without restrictive dieting. I was here on Tuesday and I was talking to you about how we get stuck in the dieting cycle. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with the dieting cycle. And one of the biggest kind of contributors to being stuck in that cycle is opting for an approach which is restrictive. And we end up falling off the wagon because it's too restrictive and it's not practical and it's not enjoyable and it leaves us feeling like crap. And so we fall off the wagon and then we feel like we're really guilty. We feel like we've failed and we try to start all over again and the cycle continues. That's a vastly summarized version of the dieting cycle, but the video is in the Facebook group, so check that out if you didn't watch it. And today we're going to be talking about how to lose weight without this restrictive dieting. And this feeds into that last video because this is how we get away from the dieting cycle. We choose an alternative approach that isn't restrictive. So let's define the word restrictive because that might mean different things to different people. So by restrictive generally means that you're restricting something. So you're often cutting out things altogether or maybe significantly reducing things down. And that might be calories, it might be fat. Fat and calories are often the traditional ones that you would cut out. Cutting out carbs is another version of restriction. Occasionally, some diets restrict protein, or it can be just food groups in general. And, one of the problems with having those types of restrictions is that it makes it really difficult to make choices in your normal everyday life when you're out and about, when you're on holiday, when you're out with friends or whatever it is. It's really difficult to make choices that are kind of on plan. And then you constantly feel like you're failing your diet. And the other issue is that it's typically nutritionally incomplete. If you're cutting out a food group or you're significantly reducing down a food group, you're going to be missing out on something, not just the protein or the carbs, but the nutrients that we typically find in those foods. And, we tend to find certain nutrients more prominently in proteins or in fats. And a good example of this is, if you're eating a low fat diet, sometimes it can be very low fat, and that can mean you miss out on your fat soluble vitamins. So vitamin A, D, E, and K, because we can't absorb them unless we're eating fats. They travel into our system through fats, but also they're stored in fat. So if you're not eating it, you're just not getting much of them at all. So often these restrictive approaches, they can be nutritionally incomplete, which can leave you feeling not good in the long term. Often you feel absolutely fine initially, but as time goes on, those levels slowly start to deplete, and it can leave you either your immune system run down, it can leave you feeling fatigued, it can leave your skin looking bad, your hair looking bad, it can contribute to underactive thyroid and various other hormonal imbalances. And this is another issue, is that on these types of restrictive diets, you tend to find that imbalances in your hormones and gut bacteria and various other areas, they tend to get worse. And these are things that can contribute to stubborn weight. So sometimes that dieting approach can actually have the opposite effect of what you actually want it to do in the long term. And that leads on to my next point, really, which is, on these restrictive diets, they don't address the real cause of stubborn weight and sluggish metabolism. And if you're new to this group, maybe you haven't heard me talk about this before, but I do talk about it a lot. And that is how it's our hormones, it's our blood sugars, inflammation, it's gut bacteria, and much more. These are all the things that really contribute to stubborn weight, to cravings, to low willpower, all of these things that make it more difficult to get to where you want to be. And one of the key points is that on a restrictive diet, these things remain unchanged. It doesn't matter how few calories you eat, how much you cut down on fat, or how much you exercise. None of that has an impact or a beneficial effect on your hormones, gut bacteria, blood sugars, and all those other things. And often things like PMS and your moods and your energy, they all tend to get worse. The other thing that happens on a restrictive diet, and this is one of the biggies, is that when you lose weight, if you lose weight, because a lot of the women that I work with find that cutting calories and fats just doesn't really work for them anymore. It doesn't really get them the results that they were expecting. When you lose weight on a restrictive diet, particularly a calorie controlled diet, the weight that you lose, 40% of that weight is muscle, not fat. Around about 60 odd percent of it will be fat. Some of it will be water. But a big chunk of it is muscle. And that is not good, because when you fall off the wagon and you put weight back on, 40% of the weight that you put back on is not muscle. Very, very little of it that you put back on will be muscle. So actually, in terms of your body fat percentage, if you lose weight on a restrictive diet and then put that back on again, your body fat percentage will likely be higher, even if you end up at the same weight again. And the chances are you'll probably end up at a heavier weight, because that's just what tends to happen when you yo-yo. Your weight tends to go up over time. So one of the reasons why that's such a big issue is because muscle is metabolically active. It's a huge part of your metabolism. So the less lean muscle you have, the lower your metabolism. And this can be part of the reason why, a restrictive diet, calorie counting, Weight Watchers Slimming World, something like that can work for you the first time, the second time, maybe even the third time. But sometimes when you come back to it again, it doesn't work anymore. And it's because your metabolism is on the floor, because you've lost a lot of muscle as a result of this process. Even if you were exercising and working on your muscle mass whilst you were doing the diet, because on a restrictive diet, you don't provide your body with the raw materials it needs to build muscle. You cannot build muscle whilst you are losing weight, because when you're losing weight, your body is in a catabolic state where it's breaking things down. You can't build muscle whilst you're losing fat. So you're always going to lose some muscle, but when you lose 40%, or when the weight that you lose is 40% muscle, that's a big problem. So what happens when you take a different approach where you're focusing instead on nourishing your body, on adding in all the good stuff that your body needs, instead of focusing on all the stuff that you can't have? Well, the way that you do that is you identify your nutritional needs, which is easier said than done. We do it in the Nourish method by using tests and analysing symptoms and looking at various different lifestyle factors. So we identify the nutritional needs, and then you focus on adding in foods that are going to address the deficiencies, that are going to support the correction of the imbalances. And that can be many different things. It might be adding in foods that support the way that your liver detoxes your estrogens, or it might be adding in foods that support the diversity of your gut bacteria, or certain foods that are higher in certain nutrients. And when you address these underlying imbalances, what happens is you have more energy and the cravings go away, and that instantly means that you've got more willpower. And the weight loss comes from building up the metabolism and addressing these hormonal imbalances rather than starvation, which is what happens on a restrictive diet. So the difference is that on a nourishing approach, instead, the the weight that you lose, only 10% of that is muscle. And this is just, you know, rough guide, but this is what the research shows. 10% of it is muscle rather than 40%. So 90% of what you lose is fat. And that means that when you fall off the wagon, which you don't do, because with a nourishing approach where you're not restrictive, you're not overly reducing down any one thing, there's no such thing as falling off the wagon. And there's this flexibility where you can have a bit of what you fancy. And because you're not losing drastic amounts of muscle, you don't pile on the weight as soon as you eat something that's not so nourishing. So it makes it much easier to steadily work towards your goals. And there will be weeks where, maybe you gain a little bit of weight. Often, if you're still having a regular cycle, a lot of women can retain a bit of water before their period. And so it's totally normal to gain a little bit of weight before your period. So it will likely go up and down as you work towards your goals, but you shouldn't have this, half a stone coming off, half a stone going on, like you can do with restrictive diets. And, like I say, the results of all of this, it's steady weight loss and, maintenance of muscle, which means maintenance of metabolism. It's food freedom, ditching the all or nothing and not being on a diet or off a diet, and instead having a bit of what you fancy and, eating well 80% of the time so that you can have some indulgences 20% of the time. It's not feeling guilty at all about what you eat, ever. That's what happens when you take a nourishing approach. You don't feel guilty about what you eat because you understand better what's going on in your body and why you're eating what you're eating. And it's also not thinking about food all the time. This is one of the things that so many of the women that I work with, one of the things that they want to achieve so much is not having to think about food all the time, because it can become an obsession, can't it? What on earth am I going to eat? What should I be eating? Nothing that I try works. Why isn't it working? What do I eat? What do I avoid? And it can just be stifling and so frustrating. So that honestly just goes when you are working on addressing the underlying imbalances and nourishing your body instead. And on top of that, you also have better skin, better sleep, more energy, better digestion, less bloating, better skin, hair, and nails. Honestly, the benefits of taking a nourishing approach are absolutely endless. And, it's always so fun having catch-ups with my clients when they're coming towards the end of the program, because there are often so many benefits that we didn't even, expect to see, like things like sinusitis clearing up or waxy ears going away, just really random things that you would never even think about kind of expecting to see a change in. So that is how you lose weight without a restrictive diet. If this is something that you need some help with, and if you're feeling like you're ready to get the proper support and guidance to lose this weight in a way that is sustainable and healthy and enjoyable, then drop me a PM, just type a comment below and just say yes, and I'll send you a message. And if this video has been helpful, then make sure you give us a like. Liking our videos helps Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching, to show this to more people. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope this has been helpful, and I'll be back very soon. Bye.